This is Holly Holt. This is an episode of Noetic, which is the philosophy and poetry app. And today I'm going to discuss with you a poem by William Wordsworth. The poem is The Tables Turned, and it's actually a continuation from last week since I have recently rediscovered William Wordsworth. This poem actually contains a subtitle, An Evening Scene on the Same Subject, as it is considered a continuation from another poem in the book titled Expostulation and Reply. According to the eNotes website dedicated to this poem, The Tables Turned describes the debate Wordsworth and his friend Matthew had with regards to which is better, book learning or experiential learning. And of course, that's learning by doing or experiencing the world one lives in. The reason that the poem is titled The Tables Turned is because the first poem focuses on his friend who is asking him why he's sitting alone, dreaming his life away, and poses the question of, where are your books? The answer Wordsworth poses regards nature, which is the subject of this poem. So with that said, let me read you the poem that I chose for this week. The Tables Turned by William Wordsworth. Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. Up, up, my friend, and clear your looks, by all this toil and trouble. The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening lustre mellow, through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Books, 'tis a dull and endless strife. Come, hear the woodland linnet. How sweet his music, on my life, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark, how blithe these throstle sings, he too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things, let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless, spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings, our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things we murder to dissect. Enough of science and of art, close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. What I gathered from reading both poems rests in the difference in perspective. Throughout the first poem, which I strongly encourage Noetic's listeners to read, we are given someone who is much more wrapped up in his books, his studies, and the logic scope of existence. Then, in this poem, we are given the poet himself, speaking to his friend that there is more to life than books. Being a student myself, the first poem applies to me very well, and it's why I chose not to analyze it. No, with me, I was more intrigued about the understanding of the other side of the coin. The people who live more in tune with nature, who often seem so lost in watching how nature thrives. Isn't it funny how we often get so wrapped up in our lives that we forget to step outside of them? For those of us who stay busy, we love nature, but life is so fast-paced that many of us have forgotten how. And that's where Wordsworth, being a nature lover, steps in. From the first verse, we are given a sense of urgency. He is telling his friend to get up and stop staying in his logical world because he's certain to become twice his weight through being so sedentary. I feel that clearing his looks refers to tossing his book-born cares away and stop being so serious, which tied solidly into the last line that questions, why all this toil and trouble? I enjoyed how the second and third verses play off of each other. We have a vibrant scene from green fields and evening yellow that is then contrasted with the following verse's first line in how books are dull. Another frame of knowledge is also presented in the third verse. Nature's knowledge of wisdom and music. A woodland linnet singing his song. There is more of this wisdom still in the next verse, ending with my favorite lines in the entire poem that bears repeating now. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. Light is often tied to knowledge. As a note on this, I want to turn to beamingnotes.com, which holds a critical analysis of the poem as regards the central idea of the poem, which is to encourage his friend to leave his books aside and submit himself to nature. He was the best teacher in the world when it comes to teachings of life and experience. In the following verse, we are presented with nature being seen as a she. The reference to wealth exists in the beauty that the world has to offer. Nature, I believe, reminds us that not everything is solemn. From the opening of flowers in spring, to the light reflecting on water in the summer, to the changing of the fall leaves and the coat of white in winter. Being as she is, Mother Nature also holds the ability to provide us opportunities to breathe, to release our worries, and drown out the serious scope of the world. In this way, she truly does bless both our minds, needing this room to breathe, and our hearts, ever wanting a sense of cheerfulness. For the sixth verse, I want to reflect on the line, one impulse from a vernal wood. According to AP Project, on the page dedicated to this poem, there is an analytical statement of how an impulse can teach you more than a book. One lesson from nature is much more valuable than any book will ever teach you. Being the reader that I am, perhaps even a skeptic with this frame of thought, this made me stop and wonder. The first question that came to mind was, how does nature teach both good and evil? I found another website to answer my question, everything2.com, that focuses specifically on this line and has this to say. The instinctive moral good described in much of Wordsworth's poetry seems closer to the Buddhist concept of good than to that of Christianity. For Wordsworth, to be truly good is to be at one with and balanced within nature. If a person has even one experience as intense and humbling as the ones he describes in his poems, that person will have a fuller understanding of his or her place in the larger scheme of the world, and it will be easier for that person to make decisions that uphold the good of the world. Similarly, to be unbalanced and disconnected from nature is evil, in that a person with a narrow scope of the world sees only his or her own best interests, and will probably make decisions that reflect this insular and arrogant outlook. To me, this makes total sense, and explains why he urges the study of nature beyond the scope of sages. The word murder in the following verse hints at the lack of morality, and that we dissect nature for our science, our intelligence, and let slip the true teachings of nature when we could gain so much. The concluding verse ends the poem solidly. By this ending, we see that Wordsworth has made his point and that he has turned the tables on his friend. Yet what is it to bring our hearts out to nature, to watch and receive? To me, that is to watch the flutter of fall leaves the way some let go and drift into a cool wind. For nature is so much like life. We hold so many troubles in ourselves, the pressure to pay bills, to make good grades, to hold on to people when we feel them slipping beyond our grasp. We hold within us a world of worry that leaves us feeling empty, broken, and sad. In watching fall's changing and drifting leaves, we receive so many words of goodness, and how to gracefully release what we carry, because nothing is permanent in this world. Yet, through watching nature, you can gain everything. Peace, understanding, gentle wisdom, and a thankful heart. So, Noetic readers, close up your book for just a little while. take a stroll and lose yourself in nature, for you never know what you'll find.